What's up guys? In this video, I'm going to show you how you can integrate AI into your workflow as a visual effects artist. We're not going to just use AI the same way that everyone else is using it, but we're going to actually use it in practical ways that can actually benefit us as a visual effects artist. So you can save so much more time and make more money. And just before we get started, if you're actually interested in growing and learning in this area and getting in-depth knowledge about how to actually grow, get clients, and speed up your workflow with AI visual effects, I actually have a school community where we do live calls every single day. I teach you everything that I've learned in my 5 years of doing visual effects full time and earning 7 figures as a production company owner. So I hope I see you there, and let's get straight into the video. First step, we want to grab our frame. I'm going to grab the end of my timeline renderer, and I'm going to drag it all the way to the start here. And what this is going to do is going to capture my first frame. So I'm going to go to File, then Export, then we're going to add to render queue, and then we're going to go to the color tab. If you're not editing in Aces, you can check preserve RGB, but because I'm editing in Aces, I got to go and select my camera settings. So this footage is Sony S-Log, so I just got to go find Sony S-Log. Now I'm going to go back to my main options, then I'm going to go to Format, and I'm going to select PNG Sequence, press OK. Then you can pick wherever you want to save it. I'm just going to save it here, and then you can click render. Now, what we can do is we're going to bring this frame into Photoshop, and now I just want to remove all the people. So I'm going to go around tracing around them. And the reason why we're going to do this is so that we can just have our background. We're going to trace, go around. It doesn't need to be perfect. We can make it pretty sloppy. There you go. Now we're just going to go to generate fill, and then we're going to generate fill that. Now that's done. We can have a look and we can see kind of like this one. This one looks the best. This looks more like the original scene. It's not too important on what it actually looks like behind them because we're going to be compositing them back on top. So you're not actually going to see anything there. This is more so for the AI to be able to generate a full background scene so it doesn't get confused when I have people in the frame. So I'm going to pick this one, and then we're just going to go and save it as a PNG. And then I'm going to open up Higgsfield. Higgsfield is probably one of the best AI programs at the moment. It's simple and easy to use, and it has access to everything. So we're going to open up Higgsfield, and we're going to go over to our image tab. This is where we're going to be able to generate all our images. And then now we can see that we have this little plus button down here. We just want to upload our image that we just exported from Photoshop without our people in it. And then we want to click our models, and we want to make sure we click Nano Banana. Once our video has loaded, we want to make sure we paste in our prompt. This is my prompt. And if you want access to any of these prompts, they will be linked below. Once we have a prompt there, something that I like to do is I like to generate 4 images at one time. That's only for a speed thing because sometimes the image doesn't get it correct first time. And I don't like waiting for one to get done and then it doesn't look good and we have to wait again to do another one. I like to just do 4 at a time so that I can compare them all. If it doesn't work, I'll do another 4. So I'm going to do 4 at one time. So we're going to generate these. Okay, awesome. So looks like Nano Banana did a really good job so far. It basically did what I wanted it to. It turned on the lights and it added these frames. The only thing I want to change now is just make it a bit warmer and just make it a bit more dim and more darker. So what we can do is we can go down to this instruct tab down here. We just change this to what we want it to be. For example, I want to make the lighting warmer. We're going to make it a bit darker as well. So I'll press enter and let's see what it gives us. Cool. These actually look really good. So I think I'll go with this one, because I feel like this one looks a little bit more natural, a little bit more closer to what I'm looking for. And because we're now using AI images, which aren't actually high quality images, so they don't have a whole lot of information that we can push and pull when it comes to post, meaning we want to find something that is as close as the final outcome as possible. For example, if we picked one of the other ones that was a bit darker, these shadows will not be able to be recovered. If I wanted to bring the shadows back up, I can't really do that because we are working with just JPEG images at the end of the day, okay? We want to make sure we have something that we don't have to push and pull too much and we can kind of just make little final tweaks here and there. I'm going to save this one. So I'm going to bring this into my After Effects file. I'm just going to fix up my timeline real quick. I'm going to go back. So off camera, I actually went and rotoscoped my people out just to save some time in this video. I'm not going to show you how to rotoscope. I'm just going to show you how to implement the AI. So once you've rotoscoped and cut them out, what we want to do is now we want to drag our image behind our people or our main subject. And because I'm working in Aces, I've got to fix the color profile. So I'm just going to go over into interpret, main, color, and I'm going to select it to sRGB because that's what the color space of the image is. It's not S-Log anymore. It's sRGB. That's how we download it, and that's how it's going to come out. And we can see it fixed all my colors, so it looks like the way it's meant to look. Let's just scale this up to about there. Okay, at the moment, the footage we're editing has a lot more information in it, so we can push and pull our characters, our main subjects, a lot more than the background. So we want to bring our characters up, so we're blending them into the background. And then what we can do afterwards is just bring everything back down to the quality that we want. To do all that, a really good tip is using a camera lens blur instead of a fast blur or a Gaussian blur. This adds so much more texture in our background. As we can see, if I quickly add this in, we're going to see instantly that it adds more texture to the blur. It doesn't make it look like a smudge of a mess, right? Which fast blur and Gaussian blur does. But when we do add a camera lens blur, it does a really good job at adding camera bokeh. So we're going to use that instead. And I'm just going to turn it down just a little bit because we want it a bit more subtle. That looks good. What we can do, if you didn't know this, is if your key doesn't look like it blends nicely, we can actually add a key cleaner, which can then help us soften up the edges and fix certain rough parts within our rotos. Just help blending it just a little bit more. Sweet. Cool. Okay, now that we've done that, I'm going to add in a lumetri color because we want to now blend our characters into the background. So I'm going to add a lumetri color on our characters, and I'll just drag this above everything. Now let's adjust this warmth because the background's a lot warmer. So we're going to make them a bit more warmer, and then let's make them a bit brighter to match the lights in the background. Yeah, okay, that looks a lot better. So I'm going to quickly just go through, tweak them a little bit more to match, and I'll be right back. Now, as we can see here, I went through and I'm trying to match it as much as possible. You can see that I've made him a little bit brighter. I also played around with the highlights a little bit just to help bring that warm light onto his face a little bit more, because we can see that these lights are warm and not cold like in the original. So let's quickly add an adjustment layer now. And then I'm going to add another lumetri color, kind of fix the skin tones a little bit more and made it just a little bit more natural. Instead of just pulling the background and them, we can kind of bring everything down after we've bring the characters up. So we can see that looks pretty good. They don't look too orange and the background doesn't look too orange either. So a really good tip as well is our background is a static image. This is the same even if you have CGI, right? When you have artificial assets that you're going to put into a scene, it doesn't actually come with grain. Grain is the byproduct of having a sensor and the way that it reacts to light. So what we need to do now is we need to get rid of all the grain in our footage and then reapply it so that it blends everything together. So it adds a little bit more of a natural feel, natural look, like we actually just shot it on a camera. So the way you do that is I'm going to add a remove grain to my people layer, my main subject layer. This is going to allow me to remove the grain on them. As you can see, this is way too blurry. So we want to bring everything down and we want to make it extremely subtle. We don't want to get rid of any of the details. We just want to get rid of the grain, or like the slightest amount of grain that's there. So this is a little too much still. I'm just going to keep playing with this. As we can see here, like we're able to remove the grain and not change the details too much, okay? Because we don't want to change the details. We don't want it to unsharpen. We just want to get rid of the grain. So just before I go and add the grain and all the final touches, these are bright lights. So there should be some type of subtle glow coming from them. But I don't want to add just a glow effect and affect the entire background because it can make it look real muddy. So what we want to do is I'm just going to add an adjustment layer, and then I'm going to add an lumetri color. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to mask out around the light sources so that we have a little bit more control over these specific light sources. So let me just go do that real quick. So I'm just going to feather them. We can see now that it helps place it more in reality, right? It helps to make the background feel like it's actually there. The lights are actually affecting the camera sensor in some type of way. So I've just been going through and just tweaking things. And another really great tip is using this exposure slider here. What this does is I can see now that his highlights on his forehead do not match the highlight brightness in the background. This is not affecting our footage at all. This is just affecting how we're viewing the footage. So in our viewport, we just want to bring down his highlights just slightly so that they blend a little more. So now if we bring this back to normal, we can see that helps blend him just a little bit more. And those highlights on his forehead aren't as sharp. Just adding the final touches, add an adjustment layer on top. What we can do is just add an add grain effect. And we want to make it extremely, extremely subtle. Like, we do not want to notice it at all. Adding grain back just helps add a little bit more texture. It just helps add realism a little bit more. Our job as visual effects artists is to give the director most amount of control over their footage. So we're going to give it back to them in log and make it look like nothing was ever changed, so that when the color artist brings it into their program, they can color it exactly how they normally would with normal footage. Make it look like there was nothing changed, okay? So we want to clean up the footage, take away all the imperfections, and then once we've done everything, we just want to add them back on top. So it helps set everything in reality. And that's it. If you want me to go more in depth with compositing, I'm happy to do so. The videos might be just a little bit longer, but if that's something you want, I'm happy to do that. But that's all I got for you guys, so I'll see you guys in the next one.